I'm Veronica Dudo. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly.
Europe has to step it up. They can't be doing what they're doing.
President Trump addresses the United Nations General Assembly, what he said and how it was received.
No matter how you hide, with modern war, the missiles and drones will find you anyway.
EWTN is on the ground in Ukraine to show the human impact of the ongoing war and what a Catholic lay movement is doing to help. The government is set to run out of money in just a few days, but Congress is not in session. We're on Capitol Hill covering the countdown to a government shutdown. Plus, happy feast day as the church celebrates St. Padre Pio. We speak to the author of a new book on saints who experience the sufferings of Christ through the stigmata. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the feast of St. Padre Pio. Our top story tonight. President Donald Trump tells the United Nations General Assembly America is respected again like it has never been respected before. In his speech at the annual gathering of global leaders in New York, he also blasted the world body, saying it has such tremendous potential but isn't living up to it. At one point, he half joked the only thing he got from the UN was a bad teleprompter, which caused technical issues during his speech. White House correspondent Owen Jensen has more on this. Owen.
Veronica, good evening to you. The president also drew laughter when he took aim at the United Nations escalator, which apparently broke down today when both he and the First Lady were on it. But he was definitely not joking when he brought up war, immigration, and climate.
With members of his cabinet in attendance and the First Lady looking on, President Donald Trump discusses the war in Ukraine. He blasted China and India for primarily funding it by purchasing Russian energy, and scolded European nations for buying Russian oil and gas while fighting Russia, calling it embarrassing.
They have to immediately cease all energy purchases from Russia. Otherwise, we're all wasting a lot of time.
On the war in Gaza, President Trump urges that a ceasefire needs to get done, blames Hamas for rejecting peace, and criticizes some sitting in the assembly listening to his speech.
We can't forget October 7th, can we? Now, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities.
President Trump also hammered other countries over immigration and climate change. He said the United Nations is making migration worse and illegal aliens are pouring into Europe.
It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it.
President Trump adding nations are being overwhelmed by people with different customs and religions, and it's time to end the failed experiment of open borders.
We have to solve the problem, and we have to solve it in their countries, not create new problems in our countries.
President Trump told the assembly he's getting rid of falsely named renewable energy.
All green is all bankrupt. That's what it represents. And it's not politically correct. I'll be very badly criticized for saying it, but I'm here to tell the truth. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me.
And President Trump rips on the estimated impacts of climate change.
It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion.
In addition, President Donald Trump announced that he and Brazil's president have agreed to meet next week, and President Trump urged leaders to build a bright, beautiful planet. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
For more, let's bring on Lester Munson, Senior Fellow at the National Security Institute. Lester, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be with you.
So President Trump addressed the UN in his historic non-consecutive second term. What stood out to you, and what message might allies and rivals take from his speech?
Well, he did his usual Trump policy talking points, a little bit of a kind of a stand-up comedy routine in there for a few minutes. It was very entertaining. He's a lively speaker. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But he kind of went through his foreign policy priorities. He talked about not relying on multilateral institutions and traditional aid programs. He talked about working hard to solve conflicts himself. He said that he has solved 7 wars. I think other people may count it differently, but point being, he's seeking to be a peacemaker, and that's certainly a good thing.
Now, President Trump was extremely critical of the European Union and the United Nations itself, as you mentioned. Is that criticism warranted?
Well, I think it is. There is certainly a view in the world that multilateral institutions like the United Nations and the European Union are in and of themselves a good thing and solve problems. There's some truth in that. It is a good idea at the UN for countries to come together and talk to each other. It is a good idea in the European Union for the European countries, which have, let's face it, had a long tradition of fighting wars against each other, to try to find ways to get along and find common ground. But you can take that way too far, and relying on these institutions to make tough decisions is a mistake. Collective action cannot replace kind of the big guy on the block going out and solving a problem in a lot of instances. So it's really over-relying on multilateral institutions that I would say is the problem. And I think that's the point the president was trying to make.
Staying on the topic of Europe, the president said Western European allies are collapsing due to uncontrolled immigration. Is that true, and what can be done?
Well, I don't know about collapsing. I think he's probably exaggerating to make a point here, which is the influx of immigrants into European countries and into the United States to some extent has changed our politics. And you've got new people coming in who maybe don't share the same cultural traits of the people who were there before them. There's going to lead to ripple effects in politics. We're certainly seeing a different kind of politics in a lot of European countries today than we were 10, 20, 30 years ago. So his point of if you just open the floodgates and allow anyone to come in for any reason, there's going to be consequences for that is certainly true. And countries have a responsibility to manage immigration carefully, make sure they're letting in the right folks and not the wrong folks, and also make sure that they're kind of keeping the integrity of their own constituents whole while all of this is happening.
Now, of course, the president talked about his trip when he went to the Middle East, talking about $17 trillion that he also raised. What do you think about some of those partnerships in the Gulf with Saudi Arabia and Qatar and the UAE?
Well, I think the president brought a refreshingly new approach to the Middle East, which has been bogged down by kind of cookie cutter diplomatic approaches for a very long time. The Middle East, of course, is a region of the world that many of us have spiritual or ancestral ties to. There are a lot of energy resources there. It's an important part of the globe. There's a lot of conflicts there that kind of drive American policy and other policies. So it's important for the American president to be involved. And I like the fact that President Trump was willing to go there and see things in a fresh way from a business person's perspective. How can we all make some money? How can we engage in capitalism? How can we kind of lift all boats by having kind of a more egalitarian economic approach rather than just working through elites necessarily? Let's find a way to do some business with each other and build ties that way, because some of the animosities in that region are built on other issues. Why not find common ground on economics?
Lester Munson, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now to Florida, where a jury finds a would-be assassin of President Trump guilty on all charges. Ryan Ruth was accused of trying to assassinate Donald Trump last year on a Florida golf course. Prosecutors said the 59-year-old spent weeks plotting to kill then-candidate Trump. Witnesses said Ruth wanted to insert himself into conflicts around the world, including in Ukraine. After the verdict, Ruth tried to stab himself in the neck with a pen, but he was stopped by authorities. On social media, President Trump thanked Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice team for its work to secure the conviction. The Secret Service is investigating after it found a cache of equipment capable of crashing the cellular network in New York City. Agents found more than 100,000 SIM cards and 300 servers able to send 30 million text messages per minute. That would cripple cell towers, disrupt emergency responses, and could even be used for surveillance. As of right now, it's unclear if it was meant to target this week's UN General Assembly meeting. Congress is heading for a government government shutdown in a week. Both parties are pointing fingers while refusing to back down. Now President Trump has canceled a meeting with Democratic leaders, citing unserious and ridiculous demands. Let's check in with Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales for the latest. Eric.
Well, good evening, Veronica. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer were planning to meet with President Donald Trump later this week on Thursday. They wanted to try and convince him to back their demands to restore billions of dollars in health care cuts as part of a 6-week continuing resolution to keep the government open until November 21st. Now that meeting has been called off, and the Democrats, well, they're sounding off.
It's clear that Donald Trump and House Republicans and Senate Republicans are running scared, which is why they refuse to even sit down and have a conversation to discuss the Republican government shutdown.
We do not want a shutdown. Our position has never changed. We need bipartisan legislation to keep the government open and meet the needs of the American people, especially on costs, specifically health care costs.
You may recall the Republican-controlled House passed a 6-week clean CR last week, and Senate Republicans made it clear revisiting health care cuts now is off the table.
The suggestion by the Democrats that somehow they ought to be able to hijack a continuing resolution to attach $1 trillion of policy and cut things that we just funded a short few weeks ago, like rural hospitals, is completely out of any sort of historical context of what continuing resolutions have been used for in the past.
Others agree.
Well, Republicans want to keep the government open, and the Democrats, based on what I believe is the Schumer strategy, is a shutdown strategy. It is their goal to shut down the government.
Democrats argue that Republicans control all levels of power in Washington and would be responsible for any shutdown.
They have control of the House, the Senate, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court, and yet they're 4-0. And yet they want to point the finger at the party who lost all of the elections. It's ironic.
It is important to note that when Democrats were in charge, they refused to ask any Republicans for their input as well. Now, some Democrats are a bit uneasy about a shutdown, saying voters could blame them. So Senator John Fetterman says he does plan to vote with Republicans to try and pass a clean CR. So right now, at least, a shutdown is looming, and it's looking more and more likely like it will happen as both sides are not backing off. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly, including wartime aid.
You'll have to have faith. This is what is important, having faith.
EWTN is in Ukraine talking to veterans of the war and the Catholic organization that's helping them. And a beloved saint is celebrated by the church today. We'll tell you about St. Padre Pio and the exclusive group of saints he belongs to. Hurricane Gabrielle is now a powerful Category 4 storm. Its winds are hitting 140 miles per hour. Gabrielle is heading towards the Azores, an island chain in the North Atlantic Ocean. As for the U.S., take a look at this map from the National Hurricane Center. Forecasters say direct impact will not occur, but rough surf and dangerous rip currents are possible for large portions of the East Coast over the next couple of days. Now to southern China, where schools and airports are closing as they brace for one of the strongest typhoons in years. Super Typhoon Ragaza has killed 3 people in the Philippines. Over in Taiwan, flooding left 2 dead and 30 missing. So far, more than 1 million people have been evacuated. In a sideline meeting with Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky at the UN, President Trump casts doubt on ending the war in Ukraine.
This was supposed to be quick, and so, Russia doesn't look very distinguished, having taken 3.5 years now, right? It's about 3.5 years of very hard fighting, and it looks like it's not going to end for a long time.
According to President Trump, one hope for ending the war is economic pressure on Russia, saying, quote, the Russian economy is terrible right now. Shortly after his meeting with Zelensky, in a post on Truth Social, Trump offered a more optimistic position, saying Ukraine can win back all territory lost to Russia with the support of the European Union and NATO. The Order of Malta was one of the first humanitarian organizations on the ground at the start of the war in Ukraine. Throughout the years, the Order has taken part in many life-saving initiatives. EWTN News Vatican correspondent Valentina Di Donato has that story.
You seem so strong. What gives you this strength?
Well, you'll have to have faith. This is what is important. Having faith. Yes, my other half supports me so much.
Konstantino's wife moved from Kharkiv to Lviv to be by her husband's side. But how is this new life, I ask?
The important thing is that he is here.
Konstantino is a war veteran here with his wife, who received a Medal of Honor from the Order of Malta, a lay religious order of the Catholic Church that brings not only humanitarian aid to conflict-ridden parts of the world, but also spirituality and faith. Since the start of the Russian invasion 3 years ago, we have seen the pictures of bombs being dropped and the destruction that follows. But what you don't always see is the toll it takes on the people on the ground. At the Fiofania hospital in Kiev, you can witness the cost of war. From the countries that wage it, to the soldiers who fight it, to the civilians who endure it. But some losses are permanent. Lives lost can never be regained, and neither can limbs.
The war is an awful thing. It is not like in the films, the Hollywood films, that we can see. It's impossible to talk about because war is always evil. It doesn't matter how you will try to hide. In modern war, attacks can come from the ground, from the sky, and no matter how you hide, with modern war, the missiles and drones will find you anyway.
At the Helichnia Rehabilitation Center in Lviv, all of the men you see here fought on the front line to protect their country. But they tell us life will never be the same again.
Now I look at the world with new eyes. I have suffered so much pain that there is nothing inside left. I ask my wife, are you able to accept me as I am now? I will never be the same as I was before.
The armed conflict in Ukraine has led to a dramatic demand for prosthetics due to the rise in amputations caused by the evolving types of weapons and warfare. Surprisingly, despite the brutality, the veterans still see hope in humanity.
If there were no good people, no kind-hearted people, we wouldn't receive any aid or help here. We received help in the hospital, we receive help here. So I'm sure they are good people.
Showing us the humanitarian projects here is the Grand Hospitalier of the Order of Malta, Joseph Blotz, who was once an army general for many years and knows of war.
For the Order of Malta volunteers working here in Ukraine so passionately, it is really moving what we're seeing here, because these young guys lost limbs, and that is life-changing. And I've seen it before in Afghanistan. So it is not only important for me as the Grand Hospitaller, looking after the services and works of the Order here in Ukraine. It is particularly important for me because I feel encouraged by what our people, our Order of Malta volunteers and men and women are doing here for those who are suffering so much from life-changing injuries. And what we see in the first place, even more importantly, is the fact that they are being given hope, that there is a life after this, these difficult and heavy wounds that they are suffering from.
Olga, a psychologist who is part of a psychological department here in the hospital that is supported by the Order of Malta, also lost her husband in the war. She tells me how the fighting has left a strong imprint on children and women who wait for their husbands to return and stand beside their husbands as they go through rehabilitation.
Yes, it is love that really encourages you. It gives you strength. I see some patients who are alone, and then I see some patients who have loved ones with them, and their recovery is completely different.
In Kiev, Ukraine, Valentina Di Donato for EWTN News Nightly.
This is the first of several pieces that we will air right here on EWTN News Nightly, so be sure to tune in each week to see more. Up next, Call for Unity, a prayer initiative involving millions of children across the globe, their special intention, and the saint who inspired it. Plus, discovering the unique gifts of St. Padre Pio, we speak to the author of a book on stigmatists. October marks the month of the Rosary, and every year on October 7th, millions of children join in prayer for peace and unity in the world. The pontifical organization Aid to the Church in Need began the initiative 20 years ago. Parishes, schools, and families across the world are invited to join in prayer, asking our Blessed Mother for unity and peace. St. Padre Pio, whose feast we celebrate today, said that when 1 million children pray the Rosary, the world will change. Padre Pio is the 21st century saint, especially beloved in his native Italy. Known for his miracles and deep patience, Padre Pio would hear confessions for 12 to 15 hours at a time. He was also marked by a mystical yet very real condition known as the stigmata, the wounds of Christ. For Padre Pio, those wounds remained for more than 50 years. It's a spiritual phenomenon that continues to fascinate both the faithful and even non-Christians. For more, we turn to Dr. Paul Kengor, professor at Grove City College and author of the book, The Stigmatists. Dr. Kengor, welcome back.
Thank you, Veronica. Good to be on with you.
So first, for those who may not be familiar, can you explain the wounds of St. Padre Pio, what they were exactly, and also how he continued to experience them throughout his life?
Yeah, it's truly an extraordinary thing, right? So he was, his feast day is September 23rd. So he died September 23rd, 1968. He got the stigmata on September 20th, 1918. So 3 days before his birthday at that point. So he had the wounds for almost 50 years. Now, quite amazingly, the wounds completely disappeared in his final moments of life. Okay, but I'll back up a little bit. But he originally got him September 20th, 1918. He's there at San Giovanni Rotondo, Our Lady of Grace Chapel. He's all alone on this occasion. He's praying in front of a crucifix, and Veronica, he's just letting it all out, right? You know, offering up his suffering for the sins of the world, you know, joining his sorrows to Jesus. Jesus starts quite literally speaking to him from the cross, right? Are you willing to join your sorrows with me? And at that point, keep in mind, World War I had been raging for 4 years with no end in sight. You know, this horrible war, unjust war. Pope Benedict XV condemned it, said it was an unjust war. No good reason for anybody to be fighting. You know, over 10 million men died. And so Pio offers up himself as kind of a living sacrifice at that moment. And wham, dramatically, he's struck through his hands, through his feet, and his side, and he starts bleeding. And he's begging, he's like, Lord, no, Lord, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. No, he starts crying. He drags himself out across the floor. I mean, he can't walk. He's crawling on his elbows because he can't touch his hands on the floor. Goes to his cell, leaves a blood trail. Eventually, his fellow brothers see this trail that goes all the way to his cell, and they call the superior. They start pounding on the door. Francesco, that was his real name. Francesco, let us in, let us in. Finally, under obedience from the superior, he lets him in, and the superior sees the wounds on his hands and his feet, and he says, oh, you know, Francesco, this is a gift. This is a gift. And he's crying. He says, no, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. But he would bear these wounds for 50 years. And you know, the wound on the side alone, Veronica, bled a cup a day. according to the physician. So, I mean, he was in constant pain. He could barely close his fingers to consecrate the Eucharist because of the hand wounds. His feet, when he would walk down from the altar, he would have to back down on like his heels. So it was, these were true wounds, and he suffered for it continuously for 50 years.
Truly a compelling and captivating story from long ago that's still important today. Now, in researching your book, how many stigmatists did you come across who not only experienced the wounds of Christ, but also reported mystical visions?
Yeah, it's interesting. So the Vatican doesn't keep a list that I know of, right? But over the course of time, it looks like probably hundreds. And the first that we know of was Francis of Assisi. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we marked the anniversary of that, of him receiving the stigmata in front of the San Damiano cross in Assisi. So he was probably the first. However, if you read the scriptures on this, St. Paul talks about bearing the wounds or the marks, or in Greek stigmata, on his hands, the wounds of the Lord on his body. So we think that it's quite possible that St. Paul might have been the first. But if not him, you got to jump forward about 1,100 years at that point to Francis. And very interesting, so I've mentioned three men, right? Paul, Francis, and Pio. But 90% of stigmatists have been women. And, and out of all the countries of the world, probably over 70% from Italy. So a more common kind of profile would be somebody like St. Gemma Galgani, any number of other women stigmatists from Italy in recent times.
Dr. Paul Kengor, we'll have to leave it there. Really great conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Veronica. Anytime.
We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Veronica Dudo. Good night and God bless.